Hey everybody, welcome to Bura. In this episode, I'm going to be talking how to keep your job as a programmer during a recession. All right, welcome back. So it's recession time. Now there are a few macro variables that don't make it a recession technically, but we all know we're in there. And the reason why we know this is that there are companies that are trimming some of the fat at their company. And one of the reasons why they're doing this is because, well, they probably overhired a bit too much during the pandemic because they needed more people. And some of those people are now being let go. But I want to make sure that you don't lose your job if you're a programmer or if you're working for one of these big tech companies here. Now, how bad can it get? Well, it can get pretty bad here, but I don't think it's going to be as bad as it was in the dot-com bubble. I've mentioned this multiple times before, but the reason why is that there is so much more technology that needs to be serviced out there, and they need people to actually maintain that technology. If you've ever coded before, you will know how hard it is just to build the simplest thing, and if you have built applications, you do know that it's really difficult to keep these applications running because things can break at a whim at any given time of the day for any given reason. So let's take a look at some of the tips that I have for you to keep your job. The first thing that you need to do is be irreplaceable. Now, one of the ways that you can do this as a coder is you can actually make your code so indecipherable for everyone else that you're the only one who can read it. This is not necessarily the best approach, but if you can get away with it, it's not a bad strategy. Now, I highly recommend that you don't use this strategy because if your business is the least bit confident, they will catch on to this and they might just get you to train the next person for your job here. Now, that's a big thing here. Now, when I say be irreplaceable, there's a long list of things, but when it comes to the code, you want to be very good at your job. You want to be very easy to work with here, which is my next tip. I would say that the number one tip that most programmers don't understand is to be easy to work with here. I can't stress enough how much soft skills are important to not only being successful in your career, but now just keeping your job. And the reason why is that people like working with good to work with people, and you need to be that kind of person here. Now, there's a lot of things that we can do. I could probably do a whole other video about that, so please be sure to like and subscribe. It really does help with this channel. But you want to be easy to work with here, and this means not being super argumentative, and it means kind of helping out the company here. And that's the kind of big picture thing that you need to do, is that everything that you do in the next 6 months should be helping out the company. Now, if you really want to make your mark, you want to make sure that you are coming to work a little bit before you're supposed to work, maybe leaving a little bit after, and you want to make sure that you're punctual for every single meeting. Now, I know it can be difficult, but you want to make sure that you do this here. And when you are on a meeting, if you're on a Zoom call or whatever, you need to make sure that your webcam is operational. If your webcam is operational, it will tell everybody else that you're into it here. And it also forces you to focus into the meeting itself here. And not only will other people at your level of the company will notice, but the higher ups and perhaps potential clients will notice as well. So these are certainly good tips here. And so going back to the idea that you want to be easy to work with, you want to have a positive attitude, you want to get along with your managers, and you want to be a conflict resolver here. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people that are really argumentative and have them be laid off in the future. I've seen this time and time again with people that I've known over the years. If you are really good to work with, being positive, and trying to just help out everybody, that will show a lot here. Now, it depends where you are in the company. If there are people below you, you want to be super helpful to them and you want to report that back to your manager. So the reason why you want to do this is that you're showing the higher ups that you're taking your extra time to make the company better. You're making the people that are below you more skilled. And if you can do this in your own time, that's even better here. Now, if the recession gets really bad, you might have to work through lunch and there might be a lot more work than you're used to. And one of the reasons for this is that I would say in the last 10 years, tech jobs have been a little bit more on the cushy side, depending on where you are here. Now, I know if you worked for a big company, you're working 40, 50 hours a week and making lots of money here. But during the pandemic, I would say that the top level of cushiness for these jobs has reached an all-time high. So you're probably going to have to work a little bit harder here. Now, I've noticed this in myself personally here. In the last couple years, I think that things have been a little bit easier for tech, and now with the Federal Reserve tightening, it's going to be a little bit more challenging. So what you're going to have to do is go back to the normal level of work that you had before the pandemic, and that is meaning more work that you have today. But here's the thing, if there is a major recession, you're going to have to work a little bit harder, and that might mean staying late here. So the next tip I have for you is to make sure that your skills are being current here. Now, one of the things that I always do right before I go to bed is I spend 30 minutes trying to learn something new every single day. It's not necessarily coding related, but it's always something new, and you want to get in the habit of learning something new. Now, it depends what you want to do before bed here. Now, some people like to read, some people like to watch Netflix here, but I would recommend that you watch something that's educational and you watch something that furthers your career. So if there's a team Discord or a water cooler, you want to make sure that you're telling people and making sure that the higher ups know that you are learning yourself in your spare time. The more you do this, the better chance you have of keeping your job, and you might even get a promotion. Now, if you're working for a big company, you want to make sure that you're following the company's policies. Now, I know that a lot of company policies are there just for the sake of being there, but you do want to follow them here. And it might seem redundant or a waste of time, but you don't want to be complaining because you might not be in the position to complain. In addition to all this, you want to make sure that you stay on top of deadlines here. And as I mentioned, if you need to take extra time or work weekends, this is something you definitely want to do. Now, here's the thing about deadlines. If you just deliver what you say you're going to deliver on time, that is a recipe for success. You don't have to deliver A+ quality. Just say what you're going to deliver and on what date. And if you can just do those two things, then guess what? Then that's going to work out here. Now, I know that if we're going into recession, there might be some impossible deadlines here, and that's going to be difficult to do, but you have to summon all the soft skills that you've learned and try and plow through that here. But if you can stay on top of deadlines, you'll definitely keep your job. Now, this is going to be the least popular tip, but if your company wants you to go back into the office, I highly recommend that you do here. Now, I know it's not going to be feasible for everybody because you might have moved into a different city or a different state or even a different country, but the thing is that if you go into the office, it means that you are going to be committed to working here. And I know it might seem ridiculous, but if you can at least negotiate some office time, that's going to be better here. I guarantee you, if you look in 6 months into the future, the people that won't be laid off are the people that are going into the office at least once a week here. And if you go in full time, then guess what? You're probably going to keep your job here. Now, businesses do like people going back into the office, and the reason for that is they like to be able to monitor here. Now, of course, I think work from home is great, but not every business feels that way. Some businesses require you to go back into the office here. And if you do go back into the office, it might be the hardest adjustment ever, but you will probably have a much higher chance of keeping your job here. Now, of course, I guess the major question is why should you keep your job here? Well, there's obviously always opportunities for you, but during the next 6 to 12 months, we will see what happens here. It could be a very nasty recession here, because if you look back into other pandemics, usually there's a boom of inflation and then there's a kind of big bust of that inflation as well. And the Federal Reserve looks like it's going to engineer a recession here. So having the stability of a paycheck is key here. Now, of course, if you want to freelance, I did a whole other video about this here, but if you want to freelance as well, that's really good. And you want to make sure that you have every single dollar that you can in your pocket, because having money and cash on hand is going to be big in the next 6 to 12 months. Now, most jobs pay twice a month here, and I highly recommend that you try and keep your job here. It's going to be good here, because if you can keep your job, then you might be able to keep your mortgage. If you have a mortgage here and you lose your job, that's a big deal here. And a lot of people bought very expensive properties during the pandemic, and you don't want to be the one that gets foreclosed on here. Now, of course, that varies to country, and some countries do foreclosures with fire sales and everything happens really fast, and others they take a long time. In other countries, it could take 6, 12, 18 months before the effects of a recession actually go through here. And of course, that's maybe a topic for a different time here, but nevertheless, the thing that's going to be the most valuable in the next 6 to 12 months is cash. If you can have cash, that's great. And if you have extra cash, then you can buy some of the dip here. Now, nobody knows what the bottom of the stock market's going to be here, but if you have a job and you've been making some extra money, you'll be able to probably profit in the next 6 to 12 months. We don't know how hard the Federal Reserve is going to break demand, but one thing's for sure, you want to keep your job if you have one, because guess what? Having that stability during these hard times is pretty important here. If you weren't around during the 2008 recession, it was pretty bad here. And I saw a lot of people lose their jobs, and I also saw a lot of basically slow economic activity. And some would argue that the 2008 recession didn't really end until 2014. That's about 6 years worth of slow economic activity, and it could be more. We could be looking at a lost decade, and I would argue that the last decade was a lost decade here. So we might have 2 lost decades in a row depending on where you are, but that's a story for a different time. All right, so that concludes the video. I want to know your thoughts down below. How are you keeping your job? What is your company doing? Are they laying off people? And what is going to happen with the Federal Reserve? Again, please comment down below. This channel does not get enough comments here. And please be sure to like and subscribe. It really does help us out when you like, subscribe, and share. So please do that. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in another video.